Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story that's been making waves across the world's oceans literally. A high-tension confrontation between the United States Navy and China's People's Liberation Army Navy recently took a dramatic turn when two Chinese warships were reportedly damaged during a clash at sea. What followed next was a cascade of events that has both Washington and Beijing on high alert. The incident, which took place in one of the most contested maritime zones on Earth, has once again raised questions about how close the world's two largest powers are to an actual naval conflict. It all began with yet another tense encounter in the South China Sea, a region that has become synonymous with military brinkmanship. The U.S. Navy, operating under its long-standing principle of freedom of navigation, sent one of its Arleigh Burke-class destroyers through an area claimed by China. These operations are routine for Washington but are seen as provocations by Beijing, which continues to build artificial islands, deploy radar systems, and assert control over vast stretches of the sea. But this time, something went terribly wrong. The Chinese Navy had dispatched two Type 052D destroyers, some of its most advanced guided missile warships, to shadow and intercept the American vessel. The encounter was tense from the start. Radio warnings blared across open frequencies, each side accusing the other of violating international norms. The U.S. Navy insisted it was operating in international waters, while Chinese commanders demanded the Americans leave what they called their sovereign maritime territory. The situation escalated as the ships maneuvered dangerously close to one another, each attempting to assert dominance through precision navigation, a risky dance of steel on the open sea. Then, amid choppy waves and strong currents, a miscalculation occurred. One of the Chinese warships reportedly veered too close in an aggressive move meant to block the American destroyer's path. The maneuver went horribly wrong. The ship collided with its companion vessel, resulting in severe hull damage to both Chinese ships. Alarms blared as compartments flooded. Smoke poured from one vessel's aft section, and sailors scrambled to contain the situation. The American destroyer maintained course, its crew on high alert but refraining from taking any provocative action. What happened in those few minutes would later be dissected by military analysts across the globe, a small incident that could have sparked a much larger conflict. Inside the American destroyer, tension was palpable. Crew monitored radar screens and radio channels, watching as the two damaged Chinese warships struggled to regain control. Internal communications remained disciplined and calm, but every sailor knew how fragile the situation was. Any misinterpretation could trigger a chain reaction, a missile launch, a return fire, or even a full-scale naval engagement. The captain made the critical decision to disengage slowly, maintaining a defensive posture while ensuring that no aggressive action was taken. Meanwhile, within minutes, Chinese naval command centers lit up with reports of the incident. Helicopters were dispatched for rescue and assessment. The damaged ships, though modern and powerful, were compromised, one listing slightly to port and the other suffering from visible structural fractures. It was an embarrassing and dangerous situation for the Chinese Navy. Back in Beijing, officials quickly moved to frame the incident as a reckless act by the U.S., while avoiding direct admission of the damage their own ships had suffered. But satellite imagery and leaked photos told a different story. Scorch marks, broken radar arrays, and visible dents along the hulls confirmed the scale of the damage. As details spread, the international community watched closely. Military experts described the encounter as one of the most serious at-sea mishaps between the U.S. and China in years. Both sides immediately began diplomatic damage control. The Pentagon confirmed the U.S. ship's presence in the area but denied any collision involvement. Beijing, on the other hand, accused the U.S. of unsafe and unfriendly maneuvers that endangered regional stability. But what caught the world's attention wasn't just the clash itself, it was what followed. In the days after the incident, satellite images showed an increased military buildup on nearby Chinese-controlled reefs and islands. Fighter jets began patrolling more frequently, and naval exercises intensified. The U.S. responded by sending additional ships to the region. A carrier strike group, led by the USS Ronald Reagan, joined the patrols. Suddenly, the South China Sea had become a powder keg once again, with both sides unwilling to back down. Each movement was being tracked by global intelligence networks, and military analysts warned that one more misstep could ignite a direct conflict. The incident also sparked an intense debate within the Chinese military community. Social media and insider reports suggested frustration among naval officers who blamed poor communication and over-aggressive tactics for the collision. The Chinese government, however, maintained a tight grip on information, limiting public discussion and focusing instead on anti-U.S. rhetoric. Meanwhile, Western defense experts interpreted the event as a reflection of China's growing pains as it attempts to project power on a global scale, something the U.S. Navy has mastered through decades of experience. On the other side, American analysts were equally cautious. They understood that while the U.S. Navy's freedom of navigation operations were legal, each one carried immense risk. The seas have become more crowded with Chinese warships, submarines, and drones, and the margin for error continues to shrink. The U.S. Navy has clear engagement rules, emphasizing restraint and professionalism, but even a momentary lapse or an accident like this one can spiral out of control. Pentagon officials began reviewing the incident in detail, looking for lessons to avoid future confrontations that could escalate into something far worse. China's response didn't end at sea. Within days, Beijing launched a large-scale military exercise simulating anti-access and area denial. Tactics missiles were fired into the sea, drones conducted reconnaissance flights, and cyber units simulated attacks on U.S. naval communication networks. The message was clear. Despite the embarrassment of the collision, China wanted to show that it remained strong and ready to challenge U.S. influence in the region. However, behind closed doors, the damage to its warships was a stark reminder that technological parity with the U.S. is still a work in progress. Reports emerged that one of the damaged ships, identified by Western intelligence as the Kunming, had to be towed back to port for repairs. Its radar systems were reportedly knocked offline, and internal flooding caused significant electrical failures. The second ship suffered structural deformation that required dry dock restoration. Both vessels were sidelined for weeks, reducing the operational strength of China's southern fleet. In contrast, the U.S. Navy destroyer, involved in the incident, continued its patrol, a quiet but powerful symbol of endurance and superiority. In Washington, the news fueled political discussions about China's growing assertiveness and the need to bolster American naval presence in the Indo-Pacific. Congress debated funding for new ships and advanced technologies to maintain an edge over China's rapidly expanding fleet. U.S. allies, particularly Japan, the Philippines, and Australia, voiced support for continued freedom of navigation patrols, while also urging restraint to avoid an outright confrontation. The world was reminded just how easily the balance of power in the Pacific could shift with one wrong move. Inside China, the narrative was tightly controlled. State media reported the incident only briefly, emphasizing that the Pile Navy had successfully repelled a U.S. intrusion. However, independent observers noted inconsistencies, and soon, images began circulating online showing the true condition of the damaged vessels. Censors moved quickly to delete the posts, but not before international intelligence agencies had archived the evidence. The Chinese public, already stirred by nationalist sentiment, began calling for stronger action against the U.S. Navy, increasing pressure on Beijing's leadership. The United States, for its part, took a measured approach. The Pentagon released radar data proving that the U.S. ship never made contact with either Chinese vessel. The statement reaffirmed Washington's commitment to international maritime law and emphasized that American forces would continue operating wherever international law allows. This calm but firm stance resonated with America's allies and frustrated Beijing, which continued to insist that its territorial sovereignty had been violated. Behind the scenes, military diplomats worked tirelessly to prevent the situation from spiraling out of control. Hotlines between the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and China's Southern Theater Command buzzed with communication. Both sides understood that open conflict was not an option, especially at a time when global trade, economic stability, and regional alliances were so fragile. Yet, trust was eroding fast. The South China Sea, once just a trade route, had become a chessboard for global power politics. As the weeks went on, the damaged Chinese ships were pulled back into dry dock at the Yulin Naval Base on Hainan Island. Satellite photos revealed scaffolding and cranes surrounding the vessels, confirming extensive repair efforts. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy continued its operations, deploying surveillance drones and submarines to monitor Chinese movements. Intelligence analysts suggested that China's embarrassment over the incident might lead to a shift in tactics, relying more on long-range missile systems and drones rather than close-quarter ship maneuvers, which had proved disastrous this time. This event also highlighted a deeper issue: the lack of communication and mutual trust between two of the world's most powerful militaries. Despite the establishment of maritime safety protocols and hotlines, incidents like this continue to happen because neither side is willing to back down. The oceans are becoming more dangerous, not just because of advanced weaponry, but because of politics, pride, and power. Both nations claim to be upholding international order, yet both are also pushing the boundaries of that order to the brink. Performance-wise, the U.S. Navy once again demonstrated why it remains the world's most capable maritime force. Its ships, technology, and disciplined crews operate under extreme pressure with precision and professionalism. The Chinese Navy, though growing rapidly, is still catching up in training, coordination, and real-world combat experience. The incident exposed not only tactical weaknesses, but also overconfidence within China's fleet. Aggressive maneuvers may serve propaganda purposes, but at sea, even a small misjudgment can cost millions in damage and risk lives. When it comes to safety features, modern warships like the U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer are equipped with advanced navigation systems, collision avoidance technology, and battle damage control systems. These allow them to withstand incidents that could cripple less sophisticated vessels. In contrast, while China's Type 052D destroyers are powerful and well-armed, they still face challenges in sensor integration and crew response efficiency. The damage sustained in this collision underscores the difference between technology that looks impressive on paper and systems that perform under real-world stress. The unique selling point of this entire event wasn't just the clash itself, but what it revealed about the current state of naval power dynamics. The South China Sea remains a high-stakes arena where national pride, military readiness, and geopolitical strategies collide. Every maneuver, every deployment, every radar lock-on tells a story of competition between two superpowers that cannot afford to lose face. The incident has now become a textbook case of how small mistakes in such a volatile environment can have global repercussions. Price-wise, the losses from this incident were not just physical or financial but strategic. Repairing two advanced destroyers costs China tens of millions of dollars, but the real cost lies in credibility and operational capability. For the U.S., the event served as validation that its disciplined rules-based approach works, a message sent not just to Beijing, but to every ally watching from the sidelines. It reinforced the image of a navy that acts with professionalism under pressure, maintaining order even in chaos. In conclusion, what began as a routine patrol turned into a flashpoint that tested the nerves, technology, and diplomacy of two global powers. The collision between the Chinese warships served as a reminder that beneath the calm surface of the South China Sea, tensions are always bubbling. The incident showcased the dangers of miscalculation and the importance of restraint in an era where military competition is inching closer to confrontation. As both nations repair ships, exchange diplomatic statements, and continue their cat-and-mouse games at sea, one truth remains clear: peace on the open ocean is fragile, and the line between deterrence and disaster is thinner than ever.